Well, in mainland Europe, Spain and Italy are taking the first tentative steps in easing restrictions. But the Italian government has told the BBC some businesses will not be allowed to fully reopen until a vaccine is found. Restaurants and bars face the most uncertainty, and many have already gone out of business since the lockdown began 5 weeks ago. G. Mackenzie reports from Rome.
The table's still set for meals that were never served.
È tutto come l'abbiamo lasciato l'ultima notte.
Chiara built this place for the people of Rome to meet, eat and play music. But it's been 5 weeks since every restaurant in Italy was shut down, and as the lockdown drags on, she's preparing to close for good.
Quindi abbiamo messo dentro tutta la nostra vita, non abbiamo il tempo neanche di piangere, neanche di disperarci perché è finita un'avventura. Certo non possiamo sopravvivere a 5-6 mesi di chiusura.
And this is the reality. When shops and businesses are reopened, it'll be gradual, and the places where you can't keep your distance will be last.
We can't have a concert, we can't have cinema.
What about bars and restaurants?
Now it's impossible to imagine that restaurants can reopen. Until the discovery of a vaccine, it's impossible to imagine that you can return to a normal life.
In the meantime, the government is offering loans to keep them going. But these businesses are struggling to see their place in a socially distant future and fear that by the time they're allowed to reopen, the damage done will be so great it'll be irreversible. This barge bar now resembles a ghost ship. Another business on the edge. How busy does it get?
It's good. The last year, yeah. Now nothing. Una cosa è sicura. L'economia non sarà più quella di prima. Non basta soltanto pensare a come riuscire a mantenere in piedi le società in questo momento. È il dopo anche che mi preoccupa.
And while this country waits to be reopened, its streets are silently being redrawn, the places which give it so much of its soul most at risk.
Chiudi i bar, le trattorie, I ristoranti, non è più l'Italia.
G. Mackenzie, BBC News, Rome.
Well, that's in Italy. Let's go to Spain. Diana Seed is a journalist based in Madrid. And first of all, let's deal with the figures, such as they are. They do seem to be showing a trend where the figures are dropping for the numbers of deaths.
Hello, good afternoon. Yes.
Diana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I was just saying that the figures seem to be a little more optimistic in that the trend does seem to be showing a slowdown.
Yes, the government, the Ministry of Health has already declared that the curve is stopping as of today. But however, we have seen a little bit of some inconsistencies in the numbers. This Saturday, for example, we had 500 new cases declared, but yesterday that number went up by 100, which means that the curve is not quite steady.
And yet, there has been a decision to ease what have been very strict lockdown measures.
Yes, today is the first day that some workers are coming back to their jobs, especially construction workers and manufacturing workers and the industrial sector.
Do we know what has been eased? How are they working this?
Well, yes. As of today, what the government has stated is that industrial workers are allowed to go back to work and construction workers. However, there's some uncertainty and some gaps in the way they are coming back to jobs, especially because yesterday at 9 p.m. the government issued a new measurement clarifying that these workers would not be allowed to be in buildings where other people that are not the workers are living or are staying. And but this seems quite complicated to get done, especially since in big constructions, many of the workers have to work together in very small places. So there's not really a clear way of how this will turn out or how this will work in the next few days.
Diana, this underlines the difficulty governments have in the balance, because on the one hand you've got the health crisis, on the other hand you have a crisis in the economy, and there is serious pressure to try and get people back to work if it's possible.
Yes, definitely. However, I think citizens are very worried about how this will affect the curve in the next few weeks. Actually, the Minister of Health declared that only in 2 weeks in advance we will see the impact that this lift in the measurements will have. So it's very complicated to say right now the effect that this will have in the healthcare system. However, it probably will help the economy, but we still see that Spain will struggle, especially since most of our economy is based in tourism, which right now it's the industry that has been more affected, and that's completely stopped.
Very few governments in the world seem to be escaping criticism in some way for how they've handled this crisis. What about the way the Spanish government has dealt with those who have been out of work? How have they managed to help those who don't have any money coming in?
Well, right now the measurement they have made in order to help the people that are going to work since this Monday is that they deliver surgical masks to be distributed in public transportation in order to help those that are going to work. However, I think most of the citizens are they are not satisfied with the way the government has managed the measurements for autonomous workers, which are those owners of small businesses or freelancers, for example.
Now, Spain has one of the best healthcare systems in Europe. I'm just wondering how Spain is looking outside at how other countries are dealing with this. Are they learning lessons? Are they pointing out to countries where it does seem to be better handled?
Well, I think the general consensus here in Spain is that a lot of people have been they have been looking up the job that, for example, Portugal has done controlling the coronavirus in there. However, we see with some hopelessness the fact that some of other European countries have not been handling this situation in the best way possible. So they are not putting as strong measurements or restrictions in their population, which would probably lead to an increase in the number of cases and deaths in the next few weeks.
Now, an easing of restrictions, some people being told they can go back to work, that there's an assumption there that the people want to go back to work. Presumably, a lot of people would rather not. They'd rather stay at home and stay safe.
Well, the government issued some weeks ago a statement that said that any business that still operates and that is not an essential business, is not a first necessity business, and if their workers go back to work, they will have to assume that if they get ill, they will have to assume that illness as a work incident and not as a part of the pandemic as well. Which means that the business owners will have to assume that it was their decision to put their workers in danger in order to keep operating the business when it's not a first necessity business.
Diana, really good to speak to you again. Diana Seed there in Madrid. Thank you very much.
Thank you.